Welcome to Awaken the Mind, the NLP and Hypnosis Guide.
Relax.
Hosted by David Uhas.
Awaken the mind.
You're listening to Awaken the Mind, the NLP and Hypnosis Guide, a podcast that inspires the curious to the professional to discover meaningful content and pursue their passions. My name is David Uhas, and I'm a master NLP practitioner and hypnotist, best known for losing over 100 pounds and running 6 marathons in 2 years. And I'm sitting down with hypnotists, NLP practitioners, and coaches to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how to make an impact in the lives of others.
Our guest today is Cari Moisan, a certified clinical hypnotherapist. She has been working with clients since 2009 as a health coach and implemented hypnosis and NLP into her practice in 2015. She's been teaching hypnosis at the iNLP Center since 2017. In her spare time, she likes to ride her Harley around the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina and go fishing and hiking with her husband and their 2 teenage boys. Please welcome our guest today, Cari Moisan. Hello, Cari.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, David.
Well, thank you for your time this evening. I know you're a busy teacher at a school, as well as you have 2 kids and a husband. I really value you being here tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm sure we're all busy right now. It seems like time's just getting away from all of us.
Yes. Yeah. Faster and faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed reading your bio, and tell me a little bit about yourself growing up. What were your hobbies, interests, and what led you into NLP?
Oh boy, there's so much to cover. No. So I grew up in a really small town in Connecticut, and met my husband when I was 19. We had our first son when I was 20. And our second when I was 24. And up until the birth of our boys, my hobby was figure skating. I did competitive figure skating for a number of years, and I love to hang out with my friends. But then when you become a mom, you decide to be a mom first. So that's what I've been enjoying doing for the last 19 years, is raising our boys. Our oldest is going to be leaving for the Marine Corps this summer, and our youngest is 16. He's determined to be a police officer. So that's their courses of study. Nothing like giving a mom a heart attack, but it is what it is. They want to follow in their dad's footsteps, and I respect that. So
I just got to say real quick, I can do a hockey stop.
See, I can't do a hockey stop in figure skates. I'll break my face.
I couldn't now, but about 20 years ago, I could do a hockey stop.
It's not an easy thing to learn. It's a challenge. It is a challenge.
It's a scary thing. I mean, you're trusting you're not going to dig in and flip over,
Yeah, these teeny tiny little blades too, right? It's not exactly like they give you a whole lot of room to make a mistake on. So, but what got me into hypnosis actually was the birth of our second son. I was always interested in hypnosis. I'd always studied the blocks in the mind and how the mind worked. And I had wanted to go to college for therapy, but times just didn't end up working out the way that I'd wanted them to, which actually worked out better because I ended up finding hypnotherapy. But after the birth of our second son, I had really bad postpartum depression. And my doctor sort of sloughed it off. He called it the baby blues, and it was fine. It was just hormones. You'll get past it.
Can you talk about that? What that is for our listeners?
Sure.
Some guys maybe don't completely know what that is.
Sure. So postpartum depression is something that a lot of women experience, unfortunately. After the birth of their child, it's a period of depression where you don't feel an attachment to the child necessarily. All those the stories about euphoria and you're so in love when you see your child may not be a part of their experience. And because they are led to believe that it's going to be this amazing you're in love moment and you don't experience that, it can be very trying, can be very difficult. It can really kind of set someone into a spiral. And that was what happened. I didn't feel an emotional attachment to my son. I didn't feel for him the way I felt for my firstborn. And that leads to a lot of guilt. And my son grew up, just 10 or 11 years later, he had anxiety, he had depression, and a therapist, family therapist we were seeing at the time, had told me that it was because of my postpartum depression that he was as miserable as he was, which made me feel even more guilt. So in my attempt to better myself, and an attempt to fix my practice, because in health coaching, you would run through a lot of blocks. So a client would say, I want to lose 50 pounds. And they'd get down to like 10 pounds left, and they just hit this block, and they just couldn't get past the block. So in researching that, and then in researching this postpartum depression, I decided to try hypnotherapy. And what I discovered with one hypnotherapy session was all it took. One hypnotherapy session with someone who's qualified and really knew what they were doing. I was able to get rid of 11 years of guilt from having had that postpartum depression. And when I got home that afternoon and I hugged my son, I get teary just thinking about it, but it was the first time that I really felt like I was hugging my own child. I didn't feel like I was hugging someone else's child. And after experiencing that was when I realized that that's something that I left health coaching in the past. I still do it if I need to, but I left it in the past. I went headlong into hypnotherapy because I didn't realize how much was affecting me until it wasn't affecting me anymore. And once you go through a shift like that, to see it kind of pool out, it's almost like a ripple effect. You know, you drop a pebble in a pond and it's that ripple effect. It impacted so many areas of my life that I didn't realize the negatives were impacting. So to see that change in myself and in my family, my son became much more relaxed. He was willing to come to me to be comforted, which he had never done before. My husband's and my relationship was much less stressed. So there was just such a tremendous amount of change that we went through from one session. And I'm not saying it's like that for everybody, but I was one of the lucky ones that got to experience that shift. And that's really what motivated me to continue doing the work.
Could you elaborate a little bit more about what was the experience like for your family as they noticed the shift in you?
It really kind of took some time for my family to see the shift. I don't know that my son knew that anything was missing before. It wasn't something we'd ever discussed with him. He was never aware of what I went through when he was little, especially at that age at 11. It was too young to explain. But I think that he found himself being a lot more comfortable and willing to discuss feelings with me, which he hadn't done before. So I'm sure he experienced that difference. I don't know that he didn't necessarily put it into words. I think he just acted like he was much more comfortable. But my husband definitely noticed that there was a big difference in my lightness. I had previously, up until that point, really kind of lived under the mantra of, if you have low expectations, you have low disappointments. And that's a horrible way to live. I never really knew that there was any other way to live. But once I found that there was, everything changed. I was much more optimistic. I left pessimism and skepticism behind. I was willing to say yes to anything. And that really changed the dynamics of our relationship. Drove him a little crazy in the beginning, but he came to accept it.
Oh, she's joined a cult.
Well, he was very not into hypnotherapy before I started school. He just thought it was a bunch of hooey, like most people do, right? And once he started seeing the changes that I was going through, he realized that there was some credibility to it.
Yeah. Thinking of NLP and how we communicate, and that the words are only like 7%, how has things changed for you with your family, your relationship with them, as you look at communicating not only with your words, but how you feel and everything else? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my now teenage boys, when I start using any kind of NLP technique, they'll say, "Don't NLP me, mom." So they know, right? So if I'm using any kind of NLP technique, they're, "Don't NLP me, mom." But they know that it works. And our youngest definitely uses it for his anxiety. It is lessened tremendously, which is great. But he does know NLP techniques to help disassociate himself, which has helped tremendously. As far as communication is concerned, I think NLP has made a huge difference, because when you learn NLP and how NLP works and why it works, you're able to sit here and listen to someone talk and be able to figure out why they're saying what they're saying and what model are they working from. So being able to have that technique and then integrating it into your family environment and your interactions with family, and then being able to integrate it into a practice and into teaching has been fantastic, because there's just so much that we don't know about how NLP works, but there's so much that we do know that's so beneficial.
Talk about anxiety a little bit with anybody about what's going on.
I can give you the example of myself and my son. When I used to have anxiety attacks, I had anxiety attacks going over bridges. If I was driving and I was going over a high bridge, I'd start to get tunnel vision. My heart would start to race. I had this overwhelming thought that the car was going to drive itself off the edge of the bridge. And at the time, we had a very large Dodge Ram, and most bridges that you would drive over, you were way up over the barrier on the side of the bridge, which made you seem so much taller. And I remember one specific time I was driving over the Rip Van Winkle Bridge in New York, which is very high, at least it was to me. And I just remember I got in the middle of the bridge and there was traffic. And I stopped and I could feel the bridge shaking with the trucks that were driving over it. And I had to say out loud to myself, you're going to be fine. This is just a panic attack. Your brain needs oxygen. You just have to remind yourself to breathe. And I was able to work myself through those attacks. The hypnosis and NLP helped a lot more. Once I learned those techniques and was able to implement them, I don't have them anymore. My youngest son, when he has his anxiety attacks, it actually caused IBS, because any type of anxiety can help to increase the inflammation in your intestines. It creates all different kinds of inflammatory responses, and IBS, unfortunately, is one of those side effects. So he would have IBS issues, where he would have horrible stomach cramping. It was completely debilitating. When he has his anxiety attacks, he gets sweaty, he gets nauseous, he starts panicking, thinking he goes immediately to the worst case scenario. So when they had a fire drill at school, he went to the scenario that there was an active shooter in the school and that he was going to find him, and he was absolutely panic stricken and unable to move, which is horrible, right? I mean, imagine that 11 or 12 years old to have that fear. You and I didn't have to grow up thinking things like that, but today's society is very different. So his mind immediately went to this horrible, terrible, awful scenario, and he can't bring it back. He can't just focus on the moment, even though that's something that his therapist taught him to do, was don't think about the worst. Think about what's happening in this very second. Bring yourself back to the moment. He can't do that. So with NLP, we taught him some disassociation techniques where he could lift himself up over the picture and see what's going on and try to figure out how to move through that for himself. So it really helps to make, the NLP at least techniques have really helped to make a difference for him.
And I'm hearing also communicating with yourself and listening to how your body is communicating to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a big part of it. And I think hypnosis teaches you a lot of being able to do that, because you're able to tap into areas of the body that the conscious mind really doesn't have control over.
Tell me about your love for Milton Erickson.
I love him. I love him. I wish I could have seen him live. You know what it is? He is very, he was very abrupt. He was very much not concerned about bedside manner. I think he was, just from my perception, I think it was more about, I'm going to get down to the problem and we're going to figure this out. But what I loved so much about him was that the way he did his techniques let the client have that experience. They were the ones that were able to walk away knowing they made the difference, not him. And I think that giving the client that power enables them to go forward throughout their entire life and know, oh, when I run into a problem, I know I have the skill set to fix it. And I think he really gave them that ability.
Tell me about your best Harley story and your best fishing story and your best hiking story. or one of those three.
Okay, so my best Harley story. I think my best Harley story really was when my husband and I moved here to North Carolina. We'd wanted to be here since, and we came down to visit for the first time in 2009, 2008. And we went up on the Blue Ridge Parkway for the first time, and I fell in love. I felt home. When we left, I felt homesick. I didn't know that was something that could happen. We tried so hard to get back here, and it just seemed like timing was never right. So for my best Harley story, I have to say that it was probably our first ride on the Blue Ridge, because I was so excited. For my best fishing story, I would probably have to say when our boys were little, we used to go to this little tiny pond in a town called Litchfield, Connecticut, which is really a teeny, small little town. in the Northwest Hills. And there was this really small pond. And I think Colby, our 16-year-old, was probably 7 at the time. He caught like 11 bass, and he still talks about it. It just was reeling him in right after the other. And our other son caught like 3 that day. And he's like, what is happening? I must be putting bad vibes down the pole. So that's been something that's been a running joke ever since our kids were little. The best hiking story. Well, I've never run into any bears. I know my husband, when he was in the Marine Corps, they were doing some stuff out at 29 Palms, and they ran into a bear. I haven't seen a bear yet. It's a good thing. I think really it's just kind of hiking in the Blue Ridge, because every time you go out, you see something different. You get to experience. I mean, the view that's behind you right now, I've seen views just like that, just hiking and standing up on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So,
well, I would like to hear some about your mother-in-law. You mentioned that she is a role model to you.
She is. Unfortunately, we lost her in November. She passed away very unexpectedly, but she was one of those people that life just seemed to not give a break to. Her husband, which is my husband's father, he committed suicide when my husband was 7. And her next husband was very abusive. She lost jobs, she lost homes, she lost parents, she lost siblings. It just seemed like nothing would ever give her a break, but yet she was happy and she focused on her grandkids. She lived in the moment with her grandkids. I mean, when they were over and she was interacting with them, that was all there was. It was just them and laughing and happy. And it amazed me that someone that went through the losses that she went through could remain as positive as she did. It just really was inspiring.
Wow. Sounds like a wonderful lady.
She really was. She was.
So you do some teaching and courses with iNLP. Can you share with me about that, what you do? And
Sure. So we've got a lot of really great, exciting things. When I started in 2017 with the iNLP Center with Hope and Mike Bundren, I started doing a hypnosis practitioner course, which is basically Hypnosis 101. And now we've delved into so many different areas of hypnosis, and it's exciting. And it's almost like there's never an end to the things that we can offer to our students. We teach them how to integrate NLP into hypnosis, how to integrate hypnosis into NLP. They do life coaching, they do NLP certifications. And it's such a well-rounded program, because if you have a coach, so if you're a life coach or any kind of coach for that matter, health coach, fitness coach, you're going to run into clients that have blocks. You can't avoid that. If they're coming to you because they haven't been able to get past the blocks, right? They've tried everything. But knowing NLP and knowing hypnosis allows you to help that client. They can identify their blocks, and then they can figure out tools and tricks and tips to be able to move past those blocks. So it's kind of the whole package that they give them there at the school. It's fantastic.
that's interesting. I've seen some coaches that are without the NLP training, without the hypnosis training. And like you say, there's a problem. That's actually an opportunity. I remember when I first got into coaching, how scary that was when they would run into a block. I freaked out, and it's like, no, this is where the growth begins.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just hard, I mean, to see your client has been trying to do the same thing probably multiple times, right? I mean, how many of us, if you go to like weight loss, for instance, how many of us on the 1st of January every year, we're going to go to the gym, we're going to eat healthy, we're going to do all these things, and it lasts a few months, and then you self-sabotage for some reason, or whatever happens, something happens, you don't fulfill it, right? And a lot of that is just because your conscious and your subconscious really aren't working together towards that goal. You've got a part of you that's working in one direction and a part of you that's working in another. And when you have clients come in for something like health coaching, they've got a part of them that doesn't necessarily want to fulfill this goal for whatever reason. And it's awesome when you can implement things like NLP and hypnosis, because they can find what that block is, what it is that's stopping them, and then try to move, be able to move forward. Now you have both parts of the mind wanting the same goal.
For somebody that's looking at doing coaching or hypnosis or NLP, can you talk about what that experience is like for them? Because a lot of people, they hear about coaches, maybe they've seen the Tony Robbins, I'm not your guru, but what is the experience like for somebody first coming in, the ahas for them around, oh, this is what a coach does?
It's scary. It's scary, right? Because it's really not a regulated profession. And I think a lot of us are sitting here going, well, what license do I need? What permit do I need? What do I need to do this? You really don't. I mean, you have the freedom to be able to practice any way you want to practice for the most part within reason, right? It's scary, especially when you're looking at schools and you're not really sure, is this what I need? Because nobody really knows what certifications do I need to be able to be credible. I know that iNLP Center is accredited by ICF, which is one of the hardest accreditations to be able to get. So we get a lot of students because of the ICF accreditation. But the process is you find a school that you click with, you find a program that really speaks to you, that you think would give you enough tools that you can be able to address whatever client needs you have, right? You could have 100 smokers come in, and 100 of those smokers are going to need very different programs. They're going to need very different processes and tools and tips and tricks. And I have like 5 or 6 NLP techniques that I know that I'm confident in, and I can manipulate them to fit whatever the client needs. So if a very auditory client comes in, then I know I'm not going to use very visual processes with them. I'm going to try really hard to make sure I focus on auditory. And that's just something that coaches need to take into consideration when they're looking at schools. What types of programs are available? Do they encompass everything? Can I help a client get past the block with what I'm going to learn here? And can I get past my own blocks? Because a lot of times, I'm seeing like a lot of these students and they're going, oh, I have to go for my coaching consultation, and I need to make sure that I pass, and I'm so scared. And what do you do with a first client? And it's like, you just follow the client. You use the tools that you learn, and you just follow the client. They're going to lead you where they need to go, right? If you're able to ask the right questions, and you ask a lot of open-ended questions, and you kind of Milton Ericksonian them, then you can get them to a place where they can really answer their own questions and be able to determine what ecological goal works for them and be able to work towards that.
I remember in one training that I was in, and this is again early on in my coaching training, the facilitator said, they're going to give you what you need. What they're going to show up, there's going to be material to work on.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Part of it was me wanting to fix them. I realized it's not my job to fix them.
Yeah, that's a hard part to get over. And it's difficult too, because between coaching and hypnosis, it's very different. With coaching, I don't think iNLP teaches you to guide. I haven't taken the coaching class with iNLP. I'll be completely frank. I don't know exactly how that all works. I know that it's incredibly involved course. They have tons and tons of information.
At their ICF, that alone says a lot.
Yeah, it does. And they take it very seriously. So I know that with hypnosis, I try very hard to let the client guide the session. I ask very open-ended questions. I'll do some reflective listening. I'll really try hard to drill down with a client, but I would never say, well, is this how you feel? Or is that how you feel? Because I want the client to make that determination on their own. With coaching, and I might be wrong, but with coaching, my impression is a client says, I want to lose 50 pounds. And you say to the client, all right, well, I hear that you really want to lose weight. We're going to move forward. In hypnotherapy, I wouldn't do that. In hypnotherapy, I would say back exactly what the client said, and I would let the client guide the session. With coaching, I feel like you're actually helping to coach them and encourage them. And while in hypnotherapy, you're encouraging, you're still kind of like the cheerleader in the background, right? You're sort of cheering them on, but you're letting them do all of the work. So there is a bit of it's difficult when you go, like I went from health coaching to hypnotherapy, and I had to really set a whole lot of coaching skills aside, because that's not how you do effective hypnotherapy, in my opinion.
I agree. And I think it varies with the different training facilities. I know there were some things not to do, like we were not to give advice, because it's not, who are we to judge somebody what they need? And,
right.
To be a reflection to them, just so that they could see themselves. Because like you were talking about earlier, when you can separate yourself out of your stuff, when you're in your fight or flight response and you're not able to observe yourself and see what it is that you're doing and how you're behaving, I think that that's a great way with coaching. And my earlier training was just to reflect back to them what they maybe are not seeing.
Right.
Like you said with hypnosis, not adding to anything, because I don't want to implant things in them they may not
Right.
be thinking about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I talk to my students about a lot, because your perception of reality was created through filters throughout your experience. My perception of reality is the same thing, right? So how you see the color red is different from how I perceive the color red. So is there really an ultimate reality? Not really, when you think about it, if you really were to drill down on it. So when a client says to you, I feel like or let's say with a suggestion, a client says to you, I want to feel confident. And then you go and you substitute the word and you say you want to feel happy. That word happy doesn't connect with them. When you make a suggestion for a word in hypnotherapy, you need to make sure that it's the client's word. It has to be their words, because if it's not and you substitute words, they're not necessarily going to have the same attachment to that word as you do, right? What you perceive as confident is different from me. What I perceive as happy is different from you. So it's really important in hypnotherapy that you're talking the client's language the whole time, and exactly like what you were saying, where you're not really giving advice, you're not making suggestions, you're not throwing your own version of reality in there. You have to just sit and be present for the client and then follow them through the process.
So you want to skydive? Tell me about what's stopping you. No.
I don't know, jumping out of a plane, perfectly sound plane. I saw my husband do it a few years ago. Wow. I had given it to him and my brother as birthday gifts. Oh. And then I thought, boy, that could have been the worst birthday gift I ever gave to anybody. But in hindsight, right? Hindsight's always 20/20. But when we saw him do it, it was such an adrenaline rush to watch. They had a live feed from the plane wing, so I could actually see him jump out, and it was so incredible to watch. And I remember just feeling so full of adrenaline watching it. I thought, oh gosh, I have to try that, but I haven't done it yet. So.
That's all right. It's on the list.
I think it'll be a 50th birthday thing.
You mentioned wanting a practice that includes acupuncture, naturopath, doctor, therapist, homeopath. Could you share with us some of your goals and aspirations?
Sure. So my main goal is to be able to grow the hypnosis program within an iNLP center, but on the side, I would really love to be able to actually open like a consortium. So you would have hypnotherapists, acupuncturists, homeopaths, naturopaths. It's to be a place where it's almost like a one-stop shop for mind and body, because people don't realize how much the mind affects the body and how much it can impact your healing process. So I think when you can get a bunch of like-minded people together that have a different skill set, would be just a fantastic group for people to be able to come to.
Absolutely. Moving forward, what trainings are you going to be in with the iNLP Center?
So I do all of the hypnotherapy trainings, the hypnosis trainings, and I help students to understand how to use the NLP techniques that they've learned through the NLP training in their hypnosis practice. So if they've already taken the NLP course, then we go over the different techniques and how they can use them with hypnosis clients. I believe we're going to be moving forward offering individualized recordings, hypnotherapy recordings for people, where I can actually take a client in, we can do like a little intake so I can learn about where it is that they're going, and then I can record sessions for them. So it's individual for the client, not you go on YouTube, you listen to a smoking cessation recording. I mean, some of them are great, don't get me wrong. I've listened to a bunch of them, they're good. But I think that it makes a big difference when you're able to use the client's words in a recording and their modalities. It seems to have a little bit more of an impact. So, but there's no stop to what we're doing, and we've got so many different ideas in the school for bringing hypnosis to the public, for being able to teach workshops. We're doing all kinds of really awesome stuff.
Now, is this in person, online, or both?
This is online right now. I think where I live in North Carolina is pretty much in the middle of nowhere. So unless there was a large group of people in the general area that were interested in this, that were at the school, that were interested in doing a kind of meetup, I think that's something that we could definitely, I wouldn't put up past coordinating something like that. I love teaching because I feel like I can impact that many more people, because for every one student that I teach that graduates with their certificate, they're going out and they're getting clients. So if I can work with one student, if that student has 2 or 3 clients, then whatever I've taught that student, they've been able to relay to those clients. So I feel like I'm reaching more people with what hypnosis can do this way.
Absolutely. And I assert that that also makes you that much better of a teacher, and you're learning along the way too.
Oh, absolutely. So much. It's great because with iNLP, you're able to keep coming back. Once you have your course, you have a lifetime of being able to come back and go to live classes. So I have students who are actively practicing hypnosis that are coming back, and they're talking about success stories with clients, or they're talking about clients that they're stuck on that they need a little bit of help with. So it's really exciting because they're able to come back and join in on the conversation with new students who really get motivated by that conversation, because they're like, oh wow, you're really out there doing it, what's it like? So it's exciting. It's really fun. I never thought of teaching. It's not something that I ever had anticipated implementing when I learned hypnotherapy. It just kind of all worked out great. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
Well, I want to share with you something that's on my bucket list, and that is to become ICF certified. Is that correct? Am I saying that right?
Wow. Yeah.
My original training, it was kind of like right as it was being formed. This was like, I don't know, 12 years ago, I believe, right as they were starting to the acceleration with, corporate coaches. But as coaching began on the increase, they were looking at ways to even license it and things like that. I had not followed through with that. So what would it take someone like myself to make that happen?
So I know with the iNLP Center, and I don't want to misspeak because I don't do the coaching section, but I can tell you that if you have been a life coach for a while and you're looking for ICF accreditation, I would definitely reach out to Hope and Mike and ask what that process may be. It may not necessarily be that you have to take all the classes if you already have a certification and you're just looking for the ICF part. I know that ICF is very stringent with a number of hours you had to have spent. And I know that the ICF package that iNLP has, you get like 10 free mentoring hours with the package where you can actually sit with an ICF certified coach and they'll help mentor you through the process, and then they'll work with you through the application process with ICF. So I don't know specifically how someone who has been coaching, if it's not an ICF accredited program, I don't know that would count.
That was my understanding. And again, it was like just on the border of when that was all coming together. And the particular school that I went to, really good school, they incorporated NLP and hypnosis into it.
That's great.
I didn't really call it that at first, but
I know there's such a stigma about it. It's crazy.
yeah. And I'm like, wow, Milton Erickson, he's a hypnotherapist. Wait a minute, we're doing, the meta models and the
meta model. Yeah.
I'll definitely reach out to them. It's something that's important to me, and it's not about just having another thing to hang on my wall. It's about completing a commitment that I made to myself. One of the things that I've learned as coaching is when I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Yes.
If I don't, it's painful.
It's hard. Well, it's difficult to be able to sit there and not feel like a hypocrite. When I first started health coaching, I was smoking. I was a smoker. And you sit here and I'm telling somebody, you got to do this, you got to do that. This is what you want to eat. This is what and I'm going out back and I'm having a cigarette after how hypocritical can you be? So it's really difficult in hypnotherapy, at least, to be able to help a client go further than where you've allowed yourself to go. And I wasn't willing at the time to look at the whole smoking aspect. So it was very difficult for me to help a client to move past their own blocks. It wasn't until I was willing to look at that, right, and to work on it, where I was able to help a client move forward past that. So it can be difficult. It's tricky.
I am making a declaration to you that it will happen. It will happen.
Good. Well, I will follow up with you just to make sure.
Thank you. I appreciate your willingness to hold me accountable to what I say.
Well, it's a lot more fulfilling when you're doing something because you made a promise to yourself than doing something for a simple certificate.
Absolutely.
Right? So, and I know that with iNLP Center, they don't just focus on the way that ICF does coaching, right? They follow all of the core competencies that ICF has. but they throw so much extra in there between the NLP and the hypnosis aside. It's just the coaching tools that they give and the way that they teach you how to interact with clients. They have a whole marketing program. I mean, it's insanely detailed. It's a very rigorous course. But it includes so much. You almost couldn't fail as a life coach, having the tools that you leave with iNLP Center knowing. So, and the fact that you have an ICF accreditation at the end of it is just fantastic.
Well, I am definitely going to look into that. What's next for you? Tell me about your book.
I don't even know yet. It's been something that I've played around with the idea of. My mom was an unpublished author. She wrote books my whole life. And she really enjoyed it. And I like being able to take the time. It's almost like a little form of meditation when you can just sit and write. And, it's like coloring. It's really, you're accessing the same part of your mind that you use for hypnosis. And it's very calming. So I think to be able to write about my struggle with postpartum, and the impact on my family, and then how you can overcome that, and how there really is a way to be able to move on with your life, and that you don't have to be stuck in this place of guilt. It's really life-changing, and I would really like to be able to get out there and help other moms who've gone through it to know that there is help, and there is, there's something you can do for yourself to help pull yourself out of that.
What you're saying about sharing your experience, that means so much. There's people out there who are going through this, and maybe for them it feels hopeless, but you have a message to share with them that can give them hope and means so much to them. You wouldn't be doing this if you weren't a very caring person. So
I don't think anybody would get into the field of helping other people if they weren't really caring, right? I mean, when you think about it, when you first start out, as no matter whether you're a coach or a hypnotherapist, it's scary. Where am I going to make this money? How am I going to find clients? I mean, but if you're really driven by a passion, there's nothing that's going to stop you. What's meant to work out really will work out. It will all happen. It will all come into place. So I think when you're driven by a real passion behind something, that it makes all the speed bumps not seem quite so big.
what is your contact or email, phone?
So my email right now is Cari, Cari, at inlpcenter.org. My other email is Carolyn at carolynmoisan.com. So my full name. And that's pretty much the best way to get a hold of me. I've always got emails coming through on my phone. I can reach out a lot quicker. When I do get my website redone, it's just carolynmoisan.com.
And I will include all the links on the website of how to get a hold of you. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Cari, it's been a pleasure.
It has. I really enjoyed our time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I look forward to hearing more about what's going on with you in the future.
Great. You too. And I'm going to follow up with you on that coaching.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today with
Yeah.
Awaken the Mind,
Relax.
hosted by David Uhas.
Awaken the mind. You need to understand. If you can't, you must. And if you must, you can. Now that I got you, let me put you in a trance. Got you feeling hypnotic. Your mind, let me massage it. Your thoughts are getting quiet. Your stress subsiding. You starting to see images, but it ain't no mirages. Think it's time to calibrate. Take a breath and concentrate. Get into your subconscious. Time to feel the energy, the brain waves. Let's go deep into your memory. Beware of self. Let the worries melt. All you see is you and you don't see no one else. Auditory digital, talking to yourself. It might seem bizarre, a feeling you never felt. This is your time to shine. Awaken the mind, the NLP and hypnosis guide. Yeah.